Hi, I'm reading Gold Cord by Amy Carmichael, chapter 46. This is the prelude verse to chapter 46. Duties are ours, events are the Lord's. When our faith goeth to meddle with events, and to hold a court, if I may so speak, upon God's providence, and beginneth to say, How wilt thou do this or that? We lose ground. We have nothing to do there. It is our part to let the Almighty exercise his own office and steer his own helm. There is nothing left to us but to see how we may be approved of him, and how we may roll the weight of our weak souls in well-doing upon him, who is God omnipotent. Samuel Rutherford, 1637. For the love that like a screen sheltered from the might have been, for that fire could never burn us, deeps could never drown or turn us. For our daily blessings, Lord, be thy name adorned. For the gentle joys that pass like the dew upon the grass, new each morning, lighting duty with a radiance and a beauty. For our daily blessings, Lord, be thy name adored. Many a storm has threatened loud and then melted like a cloud, seeking to distress, confound us, met thy great wings folded round us. For our daily blessings, Lord, be thy name adored. Chapter 46. What mean ye by these stones? When the children of Israel crossed the Jordan, they piled up 2 heaps of stones, one on the bank of the river, the other in Jordan's bed. We too have our stones set out in the open, the visible things that our God has done. They are continually before our eyes, and many, looking at them, ask how they came to be there. When they do that, when they say, What mean ye by these stones? We tell them as much as they wish to know. Every stone in the heap has its story. And we have our stones under water, too, covered from the casual eye, but held fast in our heart's affections, the secret things of our God, the touches of pure wonder. This book has shown a few stones in that heap, and will show 1 or 2 more. This chapter shows something of the more evident. In our part of South India, months are required for collecting building material. Granite has to be quarried, bricks burnt, carted, tested, counted, stacked, timber felled, or, if felled already, chosen, and carted in huge logs from the neighboring state of Travancore, sawn and examined foot by foot. And the thousand sundries that are home, and the thousand sundries that at home are undertaken by experts have to be seen to as thoroughly as possible by one of us. To hand over the work to a contractor saves all this, but it is more expensive, so we do our own contracting. With 2 exceptions, the House of Prayer and the operating theater for the Place of Heavenly Healing, all our buildings have been designed and carried through by ourselves. The field across the little stream, which in dry weather disappears, was beginning to fill up with granite gneiss quarried from the big rock which makes the frontispiece for lotus buds, when one day Barbara Osmond, who with Joan Roberts was just then in charge of the office, brought me the summary of the previous month's accounts prepared for June 6th, our day of prayer. She was looking puzzled. We had received a good many gifts earmarked for the Place of Heavenly Healing, but the close of May had found us short on the home side. There had been a good balance in April, so that all was well, but somehow the question had come, were we to continue one family in this, the financial sense, or must we divide? We remembered then how similar questions had risen about the boys' work. First, as to place, was it to be alongside, or, as is usual in this land of segregation, at a distance. We knew the difficulties of including boys in a family like ours. No one could live in India for many years and not know them, and yet it was the natural way. Accounts, too. Were they to be divided? We remembered how the directions for the tabernacle had flooded our minds with light, the loops of blue sewn on the edge of the two sets of curtains, the clasps of gold that the loops may take hold of one another, and it shall be one tabernacle. We remembered how beautifully the matter of the accounts was settled. There was never any difficulty. And now, would not an equal clearness be granted? With that slip of paper covered with figures in our hands, we asked that it might be so, and we wrote the request then and there in the logbook. Did we expect what followed so soon? A few minutes afterwards is the note in the logbook. There was a check in the mail for £250, and it was not earmarked. On June 10th, £300 came. Neither was it earmarked. So we continued in great peace. God would guide his givers to earmark their gifts or to leave them open. And then, as though to confirm us in that peace, the close of the first 3 months of 1930 showed a balance of over £600, which we were free, because all claims of the older work had been met, to use for the new. I counted it twice over, said Barbara Osmond. It seemed too good to be true. Often, where funds for the new work were concerned, our God appeared to wish to teach new lessons of faith. One day, an amazing letter came, a kind of dream letter. It was from an old Scottish friend who wanted us to tell him what the surgical instruments required would cost, and he asked us not to be blate, but truly to tell him. So, with feelings that I leave medical missionaries to imagine, the list was carefully made out and sent. Again, it seemed too good to be true. But is anything in the kindness of God too good to be true? And a Scotsman's word is inviolate. Then, for more than a year, we heard nothing. Was it a dream letter after all? It was not. Our friend had been injured in a motor accident. For almost a year, he had been unable to think or do anything. As soon as he could hold a pen, he sent his check. And then there was a mistake in the date, and it had to go back. And we knew that our dear old friend might not live to return it, but he did. Some years ago, the children who are now our fellow workers heard that x-rays were needed in Napur, and they gathered their coppers and sent them to Dr. Pugh, who had done so much for us all. With this gift, they wrote a loving note, hoping it would be enough to buy the x-rays. If anyone had told us then that we were to have x-rays in Donapur, we would have thought it a fairy tale. But that last stone in our heap shall show a kindness that has already helped many. The x-ray installation is not here yet, but the powerhouse is a fact accomplished. And the first time the electric light was used in our little home surgery, it was for a badly hurt man who was carried in for operation that night. Only those who have done operations by lamplight can appreciate the value of electric. And we never cease to bless the givers who gave us this good gift. This is from Ronald Proctor's story of how the engines were kept for us. It was written in early 1930. Some weeks ago, Murray had a letter from a friend, an electrical engineer in one of the large railways, telling him that down in Travancore, owing to the recent state visit of the Viceroy, there were for disposal quite large amounts of electrical machinery and stores, going cheap, but in first-class condition, as they had been used only for the 2 nights of the Viceroy's visit, for special illuminations. I'm afraid I was not in the least bit keen on getting this stuff just then. I did not think it would be at all likely to be the kind of stuff we were wanting, and I was afraid we would be forced into buying something quite unsuitable to our purpose. What we were wanting was an engine, and dynamo capable of charging a large battery, from which it would be possible to run lights in the wards of the hospitals during the night and x-rays when wanted during the day without having to keep the engine running continually. Obviously, this would not be the kind of machinery down there, as it had been used for lighting only for a few hours on both nights. So I told Murray that in the absence of any definite information as to the make and nature of the engines, we would just have to let the matter go. We could not, as it were, say yes to stuff we knew nothing whatever about, and the reply had to go by return of post. For months I had been keen on getting a special kind of engine, of well-known make, but quite the latest thing of its type, and running on crude oil at a cost of about 5 pence a gallon, thus costing practically nothing to run. I had made all arrangements with the Madras manager of this company for one of these engines, and all that remained for me to do was to run up to Madras, which I did last week to see the manager, buy the engine, and make arrangements for it to be brought down here by rail, as well as ordering all the other electrical supplies I needed. I called in at the Madras office the other day, saw the manager, and definitely ordered this particular engine, about which I had been corresponding with him for weeks and months past, and asked him to send it down to Tinnevelly the same day. I then went straight along to a large English electrical engineering firm to see about a suitable dynamo to run off the engine I had just bought. I was shown into the office of the manager and lost no time in explaining what I wanted. "What kind of engine would you be using to drive it?" he asked. I told him the engine, the particular type, and the size. He started suddenly. "Have you got the engine?" he asked me. "Yes," I replied. "Bought it about 10 minutes ago." "Man alive, what a pity! I've got a couple of those identical engines, same make, same type, same horsepower, almost brand new. You could have got them both from me for about the price of one engine, as I would be willing to let you have them at a very special price. They have been used for 2 nights during the Viceroy's visit." These, then, were the engines we had originally heard about, not knowing their make or size, and they were still unsold. It was unbelievable. We immediately got busy on the telephone, got on to the manager of the engine firm from whom I had just bought a new engine of exactly the same type and size, and hurriedly explained the position to him. Would he have any objections to canceling my order, and thus allow me to accept this other offer at a greatly reduced price? "Not the slightest," he replied. "Go ahead. I'm only too glad you have one of my engines. Don't care who you buy it from." What a sportsman the fellow was! We then got down to talk it out. If I bought the 2 engines from there, he would let me have them at an absurdly low price, about half of what I would have had to pay for them in the usual way. But if I could take only one, he couldn't promise it to me, for the engines were already under offer to some people down there. Their time limit had expired, but he expected a reply for them any hour now, buying the 2. Would I take them? 2 engines specially tested and specially supplied from England for this special job, practically brand new, the finest stuff obtainable, and just the very dynamos we were wanting, for in spite of the fact that no battery had been used down there, these were battery charging dynamos, because they had not the others in stock just then. I told him that I would write my answer. One engine was what I had come up to buy, not 2. I went out, had lunch somewhere, did a lot of thinking and praying, and then guidance came clear as a shot. Buy them. I went straight along, closed on his offer, bought them. We have 2 superlative engines and dynamos of just the very size and type we were planning on, for about the price of one. We shall be able to run them on alternate weeks, always keeping one as standby in case of need, thereby increasing their efficiency enormously. When one thinks that there are probably at least 12 different makes of engines sold in Madras, each make having at least 12 different types or sizes of engines, making a possibility of at least 144 different engines. It seems absolutely unexplainable on any human grounds why these two engines should have been the very type, size, and make that we wanted. And not only that, but they were kept waiting for us for over 3 weeks without our knowing anything definite about them. The sequel. I got home last night. This morning I got a letter from the manager of the electrical firm. You will be interested to know that at 4 o'clock this afternoon, we received a telegraphic order for the engines from another party, so you did well yesterday in deciding to have them. There are some very solemnizing moments when one realizes more than ever how marvelously he leads and undertakes. Don't you think this was one of them? Has the reader lost the child's sense of wonder? We of this little fellowship cannot lose it, and we cannot grow accustomed to what may not appear so wonderful to greater people. For years, a mud wall stood outside our kitchen. Elsewhere, mud had been replaced by brick, but that wall stood. We had carried the mud for it ourselves to save a few annas. We kept that wall for remembrance. The gold that comes to us may be coined in mints of earth, but for us it is heavenly gold, and there is a private mark on it, a private light. And we are learning perpetually new lessons of faith as we take these gifts from our Father's hand. What mean ye by these stones? This is what we mean. Thank you for listening. End of chapter 46. And we are nearing our end. There's 53 chapters, so we're getting near. God bless you.